Hello, everybody. This is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today, we're going to talk about, are we saving the saved? And what that means. Now, before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto. Secutor principio et nunc et semper et seculi seculorum. Amen. What do I mean by, are we saving the saved? Well, first of all, let's go through just kind of some basic Catholic theology. There's no such thing in the Catholic world as salvation by faith alone, or that you're saved no matter what, or anything like double predestination, like God created certain people to be saved no matter what and others to be damned. We can lose our salvation. We have a 3 or 4 part series here on refuting sola fide. You look at St. James talks about how to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. And we're not really going to spend too much time there. So to say, are we saving the saved? Nobody knows if they're saved until they have their particular judgment right after they die. But what do I mean, are we saving the saved? What I'm saying is, in the Catholic world, for lack of a better word, the traditional Catholics are the ones that practice their faith. We have an episode here how most Christians, I wouldn't say just Catholic Christians, most Christians are secularists masquerading as Christians. And one way to kind of look at if you're one of those people is look around. If you live in a mansion and you're not donating a large proportion of your money, you might be one of the seeds that's been choked in the thorn in the parable of the sowers. Another one is just look at your calendar, especially for the Catholics. How much time is slotted for daily mass, for liturgy of the hours, for private devotions like the rosary? How much of your day is doing the angelus and prayers and doing works of mercy? And if it's scant, then I would say we're really been vitiated by the values of the secular world. But either way, traditional Catholics are the ones that tend to practice their faith. And so you think about who goes to daily mass or tries to go to daily mass often. Who is doing the aforementioned? Who's reading their Benedictus or their Magnificat? Who's spending time in the Adoration Chapel? Who's going, not that long ago, the Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis? Who's going to that? Who is doing the Angelus? Who's doing their rosary daily in English or in Latin or in Spanish or whatever? Who's taking their faith seriously? It's the saved, right? So if you take your faith seriously, you kind of know the tools that are at your disposal, and you also probably want to get to heaven. Everyone wants to get to heaven, but you probably want to get to heaven, and so you are really practicing your faith. And so the chances, again, we don't know the interior soul, only God really knows what's in our interior soul. You could have an outward appearance of this sanctity and this piety, but you could be sanctimonious, and you could be embezzling and cheating and all these horrible things. Only God knows your interior soul. But as a whole, the people practicing their faith are on the road, or let's say on a better road to being saved. So you think, who's listening to the podcast? Who's watching the YouTube channels? Who's taking their faith seriously? The saved. And so you look at the private or the public EWTN content out there. All this content, we live in the new evangelization, as St. Pope John Paul talks about. This great time where, there's a lot of sinning. You look at society, this is a time when saints would turn their face, right? But it's also a time of current saints being made. We live in such a tumultuous time in this post-Christian and soon to be overtly anti-Christian world that we live in. But it feels like the majority of content being made is really being consumed by those who really care about their faith. So are we really affecting change? Are we really getting to the Christers? Are we really getting to those who look at Mass as getting the participation token or cookie at the end? The ones who come late, the ones who leave early, the ones who don't believe in a large majority of the social teachings of the church, who don't even bother to look up the actual theological teachings of the church, just kind of what we call Catholic in name only, nominal Catholics and whatnot. Are we really reaching them? Because they're probably not consuming Catholic content. They're probably not watching this small channel. They're probably not going to Vespers. They're probably not doing these things. And so what can we do? Well, I think certainly those who've been led to the trough and who are drinking and wanting to increase their faith and persevere to the end, as Christ says it 3 times in the Gospels, those who's going to be saved, those who persevere to the end, who don't lose their faith, who don't apostatize, who practice their works of mercy, who have charity in their heart toward their neighbor. Certainly these people, including myself, we could lapse. Absolutely. It's a sin of pride to think, I would never lose my faith. Well, Mother Teresa had years where she had spiritual aridity. So if it can happen to her, it can happen to any of us. Don't be like, I would never lose her. But certainly I think you're on a better road, or perhaps I'm on a better road than maybe a lot of the nominal Christians on persevering to the end. But certainly this content is for us to help that we don't lapse. And certainly there's going to be converts, there's going to be Catholics who maybe were raised in very lukewarm situations. We just talked about that not long ago on the difference between being sacramentalized, catechized, evangelized. And so there's going to be people who are going to come to the faith and then start to practice these things. I mean, think of your 20-year-old self. Was your 20-year-old self going to daily mass and praying the rosary or chapel of divine mercy or private devotions or going to adoration chapel and all these things? Probably not. Maybe not. So that content can be for there. But sometimes I feel like we're just saving the saved. How do we really get to informing the ignorant? That's one of the spiritual works of mercy. And certainly you can do that with street evangelization. You can certainly do that, which is very uncommon in the Catholic world. We have an episode why that is. You could also talk about, of course, evangelize to your family. We have tips here on how to evangelize to your family because they tend to be the hardest, right? That even Christ talks about it, how in his own hometown they wouldn't listen to him. So that can be difficult. And certainly we can be there as a voice to answer questions when they come to you. I think I would tell you that just going up to people and starting evangelizing typically is not efficacious. The best way to affect change or to bring lapsed Catholics or lapsed Christians or whatnot is to practice your faith and show how your faith is changing you and how having a relationship with Jesus Christ has changed you. So these are all things that we can be kind of waiting in the wings. But sometimes I wouldn't say I suffer from like despair or anything like that, but sometimes I just feel like we're just saving the saved. And those who take their faith seriously are probably on a better road, or that they're probably on a better road to have a better chance of getting to heaven than those who don't take their faith seriously. But the thing is, like what Christ talks about, the 99 sheep and the one lost sheep, it's like we still have to be here. You still have to be practicing your faith. You still have to evangelize in your own way. You still have to be practicing the works of mercy because you don't know. You don't know. We are all instruments of God's will. That's one of the prayers I make at night. Is like, help me to be an instrument for your will, whatever that means. And so you just never know when people in your life might need to listen to what you have. And so even though sometimes I feel like, well, we're just preaching to the choir, also at the same time, you just never know who is going to join that choir, and they might join because of you. Now, until next time, take care. God bless.